Hey everyone, welcome back to the Love Mom podcast. I'm Amy.
And I'm Casey.
Thanks for coming back with us. The last couple of podcasts, we've touched on the subject of addiction, which is a very personal topic for both of us. Last podcast, Casey told her story about kind of what she went through during her son's journey with addiction. And today we're just going to be talking about kind of the nuts and bolts of addiction, what maybe causes people to become addicted to drugs, what brings them to trying drugs in the first place, genetic predisposition, just all kinds of different things. So today we're really going to get into addiction in general.
Yeah, this week, as we kind of talked about doing this podcast, interesting how God brings up to us, because lo and behold, I had an accident at work, and kind of ties into what we're going to talk about today. Just kind of out of the blue, I was working at my job, and something that I've done 1,000 times. I was getting the room ready to have the next patient and leaned over on a table, and I felt this huge pop in my chest. I felt it, I heard it, and it took my breath away. I went on about my business. I took some Tylenol, took some Motrin. It was aggravating the whole rest of the night. Came home, went to bed, went to work the next day, but it really hurt. Of course, my husband wanted me to go to the doctor, and definitely am not one to go to the doctor. Long story short, I went back on my next shift thinking that I felt better. And about an hour and a half into my shift, I felt panicky, and my chest was hurting so bad. Just moving my arm to open doors, going about my normal tasks of doing my job hurt so bad that people were noticing, like my coworkers were noticing, and they sent the shift supervisor to come and check on me. And I told them, I said, I don't know if I can stay. I said, I really am thinking of checking in as a patient because this pain is terrible. So they talked with one of our doctors and had me check in, and they did some x-rays and a CT scan, and I have a displaced fracture of my third rib, and you can feel the end of the bone right here on my chest. And the pain is still what it's been 2 weeks actually, because it was on Saturday, not last Saturday, but the Saturday before. The ER doctor that night said 8 to 12 weeks before it fully heals. While I was in the ER that night, they were really concerned that maybe I had got a pneumothorax.
So, what exactly is a pneumothorax? I mean, I understand what a cracked rib is. The other, I'm totally lost on that one.
Sure. Well, before I checked in as a patient, like I said, I was so panicky and I couldn't take a deep breath with the chest pain. A pneumothorax is like a collapsed lung. Your lung, you get air around the pleural space, and your lung collapses.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then I got more panicked because I thought, I am not getting a chest tube. I'm not going to be a very good patient if you have to stick a tube in my chest to re-expand that lung. Where I was trying to get with all of that story was they initially gave me some pain medication. They gave me trying to think what they gave me first. I think it was Vicodin and a pain patch. There were 3 medications first. And then when that didn't help, in about an hour, they came in and put an IV in me and gave me 5 milligrams of morphine.
Now,
So
as a general rule of thumb, when you when a patient comes in with pain, do they start with as low as possible and then work their way up? Or do they say, oh my gosh, this person's in pain. She's got a broken rib. We should,
So
care of
that
it.
is outstanding question, and it's all very subjective. So we have patients that we see every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, asking for pain medication.
And by the
So
same patient, you mean not just the same type of people coming in. You mean like literally the same people coming in night after night to get pain meds.
yep, like Casey coming in every day with a migraine, every day with abdominal pain, or maybe today with a migraine, tomorrow with abdominal pain, the next day, Casey sprained her ankle, the next day. So, or maybe she didn't come to this hospital today, but Casey went to this hospital today and this hospital tomorrow. I don't think that people realize that the electronic medical record that came into play all those years ago follows you everywhere. So we can see everything that you're doing everywhere. So that's a benefit. So depending on the circumstances, sometimes they do start out giving higher doses of medication. I mean, that's a lot of pain medication that I got. They definitely made me call my husband to come and pick me up
Right.
because they weren't going to let me drive home. And to be honest, it knocked me out, but when I woke up, the pain was still there. So when we started talking about this subject, and then all of that happened, and they sent me home with a prescription, it was for a narcotic, of course, but in contrast to what they did a number of years ago, I only got 12 pills. So
Right.
to get you like over that hump of the first few days, even though the healing time is quite long, the initial horrible pain shouldn't last all that long. I think I still have 8 or 9 pills because it's just not a risk that honestly I'm willing to take. So that brings me back to, after all of that happened, it really put me on this search for information, and kind of I went down a rabbit hole preparing for this show and kind of wanting to get all the information that I could get about who becomes addicted, what age group, and what that looks like, and is there a special magic gene, and do you become addicted the first time, and how does it happen, and why does it happen?
And
And
I think that that's a good place to start too, is with the prescription meds, because so much has changed. You used to get plenty of medication when you left the hospital. You'd have umpteen pills left. They sent you home with a full prescription because your insurance paid for 30 pills probably, and you got the full 30 pills and you just threw them in the medicine cabinet,
yeah,
saved them for another time when you were sick or something. But
yeah,
and now they just don't do that. So you're forced to either suffer through the pain. And there's a lot of people that don't want to feel any pain whatsoever.
yeah,
I've got lots of friends that when they have their, they've got you know, something torn in their shoulder or something and they have surgery and they do not want to feel any discomfort whatsoever. And they don't understand that you're going to have to suffer through a little bit of it now because the game has changed and
yeah.
they just don't prescribe like they used to.
And they can't. There's such
Right.
regulation on the other end of it that the prescribers, the doctors, or nurse practitioners, or physician assistants, they're so highly regulated now that everything that they do is monitored. So they're very restricted on what they can do. So it's a catch-22. It's not that the provider wants anyone to be in pain, but they also don't want to get caught up in some kind of mess.
Right.
So it everything has changed. And I learned a very interesting fact that after all these years I didn't even know, but opioids are definitely the most abused drug after alcohol and marijuana. And that started back in, I want to say 99, and it was 100% man-made healthcare issue where the healthcare system itself created that monster. And it created it by the drug companies really pushing the new medication, the
Right.
new best drug, and marketing and promoting how safe it was. And that drug was Oxycontin. So I learned something very interesting. And the article that I read was very well written. It's actually written from a congressional committee. And it is natural opioids, often referred to as opiates, which is morphine. It's derived from an opium poppy plant. So I guess of all of them, that would be the better of the drugs for you, if you're looking for a silver lining. Synthetic opioids are methadone and fentanyl. They're entirely laboratory made. And then you have the semi-synthetic opioids, which include heroin and many prescription pain medications such as oxycodone and hydrocodone. So they're synthesized from naturally occurring opium products. So they're partly made from, I guess, byproducts of morphine and codeine. That was interesting to me because I had always just used the opioid and opiate term interchangeably, not realizing that there were
Right.
two different terms. That fentanyl, methadone are totally lab created, which I guess makes sense because back when we started the fentanyl crisis, we as a government changed our supplier from South America to Mexico, and heroin got cheaper. We started getting our fentanyl from Mexico, and Mexico gets their fentanyl supplies from China. It's just this whole big thing, and it all comes into America that way. It's nuts. It's just nuts. And it's killing so many people.
So would you say like it's like an order of horrificness, maybe morphine and opioids from the poppy plant, then heroin, then fentanyl, and so because I've always heard like heroin's kind of the baby sister of fentanyl. You know, like if you're gonna be addicted to something, you're better off addicted to heroin than you are fentanyl or
Absolutely.
meth.
Absolutely. Yes. Heroin is cheaper, of course, and it takes such a teeny tiny amount of fentanyl to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Like they say, the amount that can fit on a pencil lead
Mm-hmm.
is enough to kill you. And once I started looking into it and doing the research, you read one little piece and then it sends you down a rabbit hole to another piece. And I'm like, okay, so they talk about counterfeit pills. And I'm like, well, where do you buy counterfeit pills? Because I wouldn't know where to get them. And one article that I read says counterfeit prescription pills are easily accessible and often sold on social media.
Mm-hmm.
The e-commerce platforms making them available to anyone with a smartphone.
Yeah.
So that makes me scared to death for my children, my grandchildren. It makes me want to try to figure out how to buy them.
Yeah. Well, my son could have told you because he bought some through the mail multiple times, had it shipped to our house, and without our knowing,
Yeah,
bought it on the internet. Even though there was a kid down the street that sold it, he still bought it through the mail. When we found out about it, we called the police. The police came, said,
yeah,
because we said we are going to bring it to the police station and have it tested. And they said, absolutely do not get in the car with it because of something happened. We pulled you over, you're toast.
right,
So they came
right.
to our house, picked it up to take it and have it analyzed. And I said, why in the world would he buy it through the mail when you could just really literally walk down the road and get some? And he said, well, why do you order a
Right.
pizza? You could drive to Domino's. It's 2 minutes away. Why do you order it, and have it delivered? It's just convenient and
Convenient.
it's where it is, it's, but he was literally having it shipped to our house from what I'm sure is a fake address and had a return address on it that I know,
Yeah.
you'll never know.
I always thought that I was pretty savvy to the world. I thought that I was the cool, I don't want to say cool mom, but I thought that I was cool to the world. I thought that I knew things. I thought that I, was single and living my best life and just was worldly, if that makes sense. But there's so much stuff that I guess I'm totally blind to. And I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that I'm a saint and didn't live life, because I certainly did. But just in preparing for this show, so much I don't know. And this whole counterfeit pill thing and saying that you can buy it on the internet. And I guess when you think about it, think about Prince, he died because he was addicted to Vicodin from his surgeries or whatever. And you would think that he wouldn't be buying counterfeit pills because he's Prince, but it impacts everybody. Like the research says, every age, gender, culture, socioeconomic status, it impacts everybody.
Imagine how we felt. I was married. Well, I am still married, but Evan's stepdad was former DEA. I mean, he was licensed to drive around with a meth lab in his car, literally drove to different police stations, showed them how meth was made, what to be looking for, what meth looked like, what it smelled like, what the lab parts looked like, what they'd be buying. We thought we knew what to
Right.
look for. We thought we knew the signs to look for. We thought we were so much ahead of the game and went right past us.
I wonder, and I think about this a lot. Is it denial? Are we in denial because we don't want to see what's happening with our child? We don't want to call them out. You know, um,
For me, that was absolutely of it, was denial, and to be honest, thinking that we're not like those people. We're above that. We're better than that. We have a stepdad here that was former, drug enforcement. We've got a nice house, we're not like that. So he'll just
yeah,
knock it off, get off the drugs, we'll go back to normal and carry on as usual. Christmas is still on, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's honestly where I was at for a very long time, even, at least for the
I,
first part of it. At least for the
I,
first part of it.
well,
We could see it. We saw it coming, that you just think that it's never going to go that far.
I think you hit it on the head because you're right on target with how I believe that I felt at that time too, that he's just going through something. He's just experimenting. I drank a lot of beer before I was old enough to drink beer, and it was a phase, and we outgrow it and go on with our lives and outgrow it.
And we thought that we knew that had started with pot, and honestly, we looked the other way for a lot of it because we thought, as kids, we were around it. We've smoked it. We're not, I get a prescription for it for my RLS, and you know, it was not that big a deal, we thought. We would ground him when we would find out that he had smoked it. We'd Even worse, we would call him down to the living room and have a heart to heart, which is every kid's absolute worst nightmare. They would so much rather be just grounded and sent to their room. But no, we called him down and would have a 2 hour discussion about why he was taking, why he was smoking pot, and, made him write a letter to himself and to us about why he was smoking it and what we could
Yeah.
do to fix it. And I know it was excruciating for him to sit down there and, like I say, kids hate that.
Yeah.
But, and we thought that that might nip it in the bud. It was just a phase.
Just a
It
phase.
was just
And
a
my
phase.
son tell you that he didn't want to disappoint his family. He didn't want it around his family. So he knew that it wasn't something that he was supposed to be doing. Yeah, it you put on your rose-colored glasses, and definitely it can't happen to us. We go to church every Sunday, and we are that family that everyone thinks of as that family. His grandmother was like literally June Cleaver. So just a phenomenal woman. And a lot of the research that I read, and I'm glad that it talked about it, was addiction isn't, or substance use disorder, as we call it now, and it has a real DSM-4 code, so it's a diagnosis. It's not a character flaw. It's not one of them people. It's not their homeless person under a bridge, is what I always said. It's a true illness. It's something that needs to be treated. I think I read today when I looked up how many times do you relapse or go to treatment before you're cured, and the answer is many. That it's a chronic illness like diabetes, like high blood pressure, that needs to be managed. It's not a one and done situation. You have to manage it. And something that I read that was very interesting is it can't be managed in isolation, and it can't be managed without a good support system. And when I read that, I wrote down, people rarely recover in isolation. Social and familial structures profoundly influence relapse risk. So, as soon as I read that, I thought that same social and familial structure for some probably is why they started using in the first place. either the lack of that structure or trauma from that structure. So I can see why it would be part of the reason that people relapse. Or, it talks about triggers and how it could be one of the triggers. So something that I found very comforting is reduced risk over time. Once someone maintains 12 months of abstinence, relapse risk begins to drop significantly. By 5 years of being clean and sober, the odds of long-term success are as high as 85%. So
That's hopeful.
it is. People do recover. Uh, It definitely isn't easy. I've never had to walk a mile in those shoes, but people do recover. So it is hopeful. And I think that one thing that I've learned through this entire journey is no one can stay in isolation, whether it is the person actually using or the people who are on the sidelines watching it happen, because I did stay isolated about it for the same reasons that I didn't want to believe it was happening, because I didn't want people to judge me, and what a bad parent that I was, or how we had failed as parents. So it took a long time for me to open up and share. And now I think everyone should share, because there's value in everyone's story. And there's no two stories that are alike, but I think that the underlying part of it is the same. The hurt and the anxiety that goes along with it are the same, but the bumps along the road are different in people's stories. I think everyone needs a support system and someone that will just listen. So that's very important. And I think that I know that that's why I feel wholeheartedly that this podcast is important. We have to break the societal expectations that keep people in fear. In my opinion, fear is the most powerful driving force in the world. Fear keeps people away from their family because of the shame. I think shame keeps people using drugs.
It keeps people like myself, and this is something that I have not brought up before, but we talk about Adam, my current husband, their kid's stepdad, being DEA. Well, I was married for 20 years to my kid's father, and he was an addict. He was an alcoholic. He was a drug abuser. I hid it from my parents, my family, my friends. We hid it as much as possible. No one knew the extent of his addiction, of the horrors that we lived in. Even our kids didn't really know, because I made sure that, they're sheltered from a lot of that. Maybe on a future podcast, we'll talk about that. Right. And like I say, it's not just the addict that goes through the shame. I lived with an addict for 20 years. My kid's biological dad was an addict. And believe it or not, I've never really thought of that as a factor in why my son did drugs. I've just never even thought about that. I thought, no, our family is great. Their stepdad's, was a former cop that knows everything about drugs. We majored in theology in college. I mean, that doesn't, and it never even clicked with me that as bizarre as that sounds, that for the first 10 years of that kid's life, he lived with an addict. And
Yeah.
he was a horrible alcoholic pretty much from the time we got married. He was doing drugs basically when the kids were very, very small. I managed to hide it from my family for the most part. I hid it from I had a photography studio with another lady, and she had no idea how bad it was. We there's just workarounds that where you
How
hide
did
it.
how did you do that?
So,
How, if you don't mind me asking, how
no,
did
no,
you
no.
manage that?
So I say I had an escape. I had a studio, a photography studio, and whenever we'd know that he was starting to get bad at night, I would load up the kids. We would drive down the road to the photography studio. We had an air mattress up there. They had a Nintendo Wii. We had a full kitchen in there, and we just locked the door and pretended that, hoped that he wouldn't get in. And on the nights that he passed out or blacked out before we left, I would round up any guns that we had in the house, take them with us so that he couldn't think about that and use those after we left. There were nights that I went to my parents' house. There were nights that I took the kids and went to his brother's house. And the kids always
No,
thought it was just kind of an
yeah.
adventure. I would tell them, hey, we're going to go to your grandma's house tonight. There's going to be a storm. That was the thing, was that they had a basement. And, oh, there's going to be a storm. So we're going to grandma's house tonight. And yay, we're going to grandma's, or yay, we're going up to the studio for a slumber party, or yay, we're going to their uncle's house. And I know that my older son was 2 years older, and I know that he knew a little bit about it, but I don't think that Evan really grasped how bad everything was. This is a man that was addicted to everything that came in front of him. He would get a bottle of Ambien from his doctor, 30 pills for the month, and he would be out by day 5. He would take 4 and 5 a day. And when you hear those Ambien stories and you laugh and you think, oh, somebody drove to McDonald's and ordered 1,200, walked back,
So I have terrible insomnia, and I was given Ambien, and I don't think I took it for a week until I had to stop taking it because I had that exact experience. I scared my friend so bad that she literally broke into my house to make sure that I was okay because we were talking on the phone, and she said I was talking out of my head
Mhm.
and talking. When she got into my house, I was sitting on my floor surrounded by photos, talking to the people in the photos like they were in the house.
And it's funny and we laugh.
And
There's some people do funny
Yes.
things on it. Let's be
it
honest. It's funny. It's not, it's really not funny. And it's particularly not funny when
Ambien
we're taking
drug.
4, 5, 6 of them,
Uh,
also doing other drugs, and I have no idea what he was even taking. I know that he was addicted to oxycodone and Oxycontin. He drank a fifth of vodka a day, a fifth of vodka every day. By the time he got home, he had already had, like, he would go to work, drink a pint of vodka from work to home, and then he would start in on his fifth of vodka. And then you pile on the Ambien, you pile on the Oxy on top of that. I remember our kids having bad colds and bad respiratory things over the winter, and their pediatrician was an old school pediatrician that said, I'm giving them cough medicine with codeine, with Oxycontin in it. That was good stuff back then, like Lortabs
yeah,
mixed in with
yeah,
and it was very good stuff. I would get
yeah.
a bowl of that for them, and I'd get a teaspoon of it out for them at night. I'd go to get the bottle for the next day, and he had drank it all. He would find it. I put it under mattresses. I put it in suitcases and closets. I hid it in shoes. It didn't matter. He would find it. It was gone. Anything that we got,
Wow.
anything that we got that had some sort of effect of any kind, he took it. So I don't know that my parents were really aware of how bad the had gotten or the drinking had gotten until one year we were headed out for vacation. We had a condo down in Florida that we stayed at every year. And I wasn't going to be able to drive down with my husband and the kids that year because I had a job in Chicago. I was shooting Miss Illinois, and I was going to fly out with my brother a day later. So he was going to have to drive the kids. And I told my mom and dad to put the kids in the car with them. He was not allowed to drive them. And I think that's the first time that it really clicked with him how much he drank, because they said they knew by the time they got down there that he had been drinking the entire trip. And yeah, that was really the first time I think that they even realized how bad that had gotten. So,
Yeah.
and it's like I say, you would think that that would be like a defining part of my life that, oh my gosh, my life's been swallowed up by addiction for 20 something years. And that just never really clicked with me that that was something that would affect Evan either through genetics or through him modeling behavior with his dad. I don't know. I mean, we got away from it whenever I remarried Adam and we moved to Missouri. They didn't have nearly as much contact with him. At that time, he had a girlfriend that was in and out of jail for meth. So he didn't really have a lot of contact with him at his absolute worst. At the end, he did commit suicide in 2014. It just never clicked with me that that might have affected Evan in the way that he might turn to drugs, because we had gone to the doctor, we tried some therapy, we had got on medication for antidepressant. I thought we were doing really good. And how wrong was I? Maybe that was, and that may not have even had anything to do with it. It could have been anything. We'll never know, unfortunately. I remember the night that I left him, I had been at work all day. He was at home. I had no idea what he had taken, what all he had drank, but I know that he had plenty of vodka. He stored it all over the house. It was hidden in the boys' bathroom. It was hidden in our bathroom. It was hidden in the garage. He had vodka bottles everywhere. He had drugs everywhere. But I came home from work, and I always came home right before the bus was going to drop the kids off from school. So I pulled up in the driveway, and he was on the porch with a gun. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm waiting for you to get away from the car so I can get a clear shot." And I kind of stood there for a minute and I thought, how much time would it take me to get back in the car, put the car in reverse, and drive off toward the direction that the bus is going to be coming in, and stop the bus, get the kids, and leave right then? And I knew I didn't have time to do, and I'm mathing it out in my head, trying to figure out how I can get all of this done. I had about 3 to 5 minutes before the bus usually pulled up, and as luck would have it, she was early that day.
Oh my God.
Pulled up, dropped the kids off. Of course, he said, "Hey, boys, come on." And I was going to try to get him in the car. There wasn't time. He was like, come on, and got him in the house. So they're in the house already. And I had no choice but to follow in it, and I'm not leaving the kids there with him.
Absolutely.
Up to the porch. He was on the porch, and he said, "Just to let you know, I shot the dog." He said, "The neighbors are tired of the dog running up there, so I just took care of it." And I'm like, I'm in disbelief. He shot the dog, our family dog. And I said, "Is she gone? Where is she? Is she dead? Where is she at?" Because I want to make sure the boys didn't see her body, of course. And he said, no, he said, actually, I hit her in the face, but she ran off. So there's a dog running around that's
Hit her in
been,
the face with a bullet.
huh?
Hit her in the face with a bullet.
Hit her in the face with a bullet.
God.
The dog survived. He said, also, I shot the cat because she's pregnant and I told you we should get her fixed. Now, we lived out in the country and we had barns and cats and stuff, and it was not that big a deal to have
That's the
because that's what you do.
Mhm.
So I called his brother and my sister-in-law and said, hey, the dog's running around out here. We lived out in the country. Can you come home from work early? Look for the dog. They did. They found her, took her to the vet, took her home with them. The dog survived, believe it or not. But I went inside and the boys were playing, didn't know anything was going on. He set the gun beside a recliner that he always sat in and just went over there and just tapped on it just to let me know the gun was sitting right there. And I wasn't really sure what to do, so I stopped and I picked up a book I'd been reading. Picked up a book and sat down and started to read it. He walked over, grabbed the book, ripped it in half from the spine. So this is how out of it he is. Rips the book in half, throws it on the ground. He said, I would think that you would have something better to do than to read that stupid book on the last night that you're alive.
Oh my God.
And he said, you can start by making dinner. So I went in and I made dinner. I was in and out of the refrigerator. I knew we always kept like $300 in the freezer. Just emergency money. Just if you have a fire, it's less likely to burn up in the freezer. So I was able to sneak the $300 out of the freezer, put it in my pocket, and just kept going like nothing was happening. I sat down after we ate, and he passed out cold there in his chair. And the boys walked through the living room at some point, and I said very quietly, and they were very used to this, which was very beneficial at this point. I said, I need you all to just walk out to the car. And they said, we don't have our shoes. I said, don't worry about your shoes. I just need you to go on out to the car. So they did. And I got up and followed them and we left. And that was the last night we were there. And they never really knew anything was completely off. Kids, they
Tell them that story
yes.
as adult.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did tell him later on, but literally, we had left the house without a change of clothes, without any shoes, without their book bags for school. I didn't send him to school the next day because I didn't want him to come
Find
to
them.
decide to go down there and get them. So they stayed at home. I went and got him some shoes and some clothes and went to my mom's house, and that's where they stayed. And I didn't think that he would come over to my parents' house because he really didn't want them knowing how bad it was. There's the shame part right there, is he did not want them knowing that he was the way he was.
Was he physical with you? Was there that type of relation?
Yes, there was.
And did the kids know that?
Not with the kids, and the kids did not know that. And I don't think I've ever even told them any stories about that happening, or I don't honestly know that I've told Adam, but I've really not told a lot of people about what all went down. And it was pretty much for the entire 20 years. It was, I mean, my mom had an idea that I was going to leave soon. His mom was terminally ill, and she said, well, you can't leave him while she's sick. And I thought, well, okay. She said, use this time to get your ducks in a row, get your finances in a row, get where you can leave him after all of this is done. And so fortunately, I'd made a few moves before then, but not enough.
He'd crazy enough to shoot you.
Right. And he had threatened it on multiple occasions, but never actually had the gun out and said, well, I'm waiting for a clear shot. And if the bus hadn't pulled up, who knows? Maybe nothing. Maybe it was just an empty threat. But I don't think it was an empty threat for that night. I think he had a full intention of doing away with me that night. So
Unbelievable.
crazy stories. Crazy stories. I could tell them, I could fill 20 podcasts with crazy stories. But yet, I did not think that had anything to do with Evan's situation when clearly there's something there that probably had something to do with it. At least the divorce and moving, and his father did commit suicide after we left. He actually committed suicide the night that we moved into our new house. So great timing there. But yeah, I should have put more emphasis on everyone's mental health at that point. I think I was so relieved that the whole thing was over and he was gone and not a threat anymore that I didn't really take into account how they were feeling. I really had to try hard to put myself into their shoes.
Yeah, the genetic piece, the research doesn't suggest that there's like that one gene that they can pull out and say it's gene whatever, but there's a definite strong link, but there's a link to living in a home with an addict. And as you were just saying that, I have such a strong family. Like I've discussed, every male in my family is an alcoholic. As far as drug addicts, if they were, I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised. My son never lived, like his dad isn't an addict, isn't an alcoholic, but other family members. So, that that genetic piece of it. Yeah. I don't know. As like I talked about before, I've been overwhelmed with the guilt. When I sit and think about it, I still am. But, I spent the day with him today and those are good moments. So that definitely is a blessing. We can, as moms, second guess everything that we've ever done in our life. For you to have protected them so much, that's what moms do. And that's amazing. And that was a lot on you. That was tough. I know that it was. There's no manual. There's no handbook. And at any given moment, we're all just really doing the best that we can. And I hope that we become so popular that people just want to come here for some kind of support and to hear our stories and realize that you really can get through it.
Right.
And that there's, people always say there's no right or wrong way to do it. And I guess that's true.
But I want people to know that people that look just like me, that live in a house just like me, that had kids that look just like my kids, that something, yeah, there can always be something lurking.
Yep.
And be
I tell
ashamed.
people one
You've done
crisis away from being homeless, or we're one crisis away from taking that first drink, or you just never know. You just never know how hard losing my mom was going to be. And And it's been what, April, May, June, 3 months, and I feel like I just lost her today. I feel the loss of her just as intense today as the day that she left. Maybe a little more this week because her ashes arrived at my sister's this week. So
That's emotional, and you relive it all over again. I know that feeling, going to pick up the
Yeah.
ashes, and it's
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So I'm grateful every day that I can pick up the phone and text you literally at any hour. And most of the time I get a message back right away. And that has been a true blessing over these last 3 months. I want to tell you that publicly. And I'm so grateful that we're doing this together. And I want you to know that you can pick up the phone, you can reach out to me at any time. And some days are going to be better than others. And I know that we both said to each other earlier this week, I don't even remember what day, that it just feels like we've been in a funk. And I
definitely.
think that is okay. I am not going to let you stay in a funk for very long, and I don't want you to let me stay there either. We have to get ourselves together, and I think that's what friends are for. And that, again, I want to reiterate that that's what this podcast is for.
Yeah, that life goes on, even,
Yeah.
the big question, is there life after death? Well, for the ones that are left behind, there definitely is, and you have to live.
Lifing sometimes, but on those days that you feel like you can't get through it, you have to have the support. And everything that I read on relapse and getting better, the isolation piece is the dangerous piece. And personally, for myself, I'm an isolator. I will go to my room, shut the door, and I will stay to myself. And I know that that's dangerous. And I know that that is who I am as a person. I'll be in my room for a week with no shower, and I know that that's bad, and I'm trying to be better about it. So I think that we're going to make it. I think we're going to continue to push forward, and I think we're going to make it.
It does get better,
Because
life is never the same after addiction, after a death, but it's still life, and still have to.
I think it can be beautiful, but like it's not the same. It isn't the same. But for me, I have to realize that my children are still here, and especially those littles. And I'm gonna have to get you here the next time the littles are here, because I'm telling you what, that littlest one, he is funny, and he gets to going and he'll say, "Please, please." Oh my gosh, he's funny. So the next time they're here, you're just gonna have to come over
We'll do
and let
that.
them.
Love that. Yeah,
Yep.
I would love that. I need a little joy.
Well, they'll get you. They'll get you. So I guess we will wrap it up here and see what we get into next time.
Right, right. And people that are listening, if there's anyone out there who is feeling like you're alone, please leave us a comment, drop us an email. reach out to us and one of us will reach out back to you. I promise you. I don't want anyone to feel alone in this. And even if it's just text back and forth or an email
Absolutely.
or something, please reach out.
Don't feel like you have to do this alone, because we're here. We want to create a community where we can all go through this together, share our journey, and support one another. So leave a comment, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and we will see you next time.
Bye. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.